Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors. This YouTube channel is dedicated to getting our youth more involved in the outdoors. To do this, I'll be out with family and friends doing all sorts of outdoor adventures. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we are summiting Mount Idaho. So there are 9 peaks in Idaho that are over 12,000 feet, and this is one of them. So I'm trying to kind of tick them off the list as far as bagging the peaks, and so we're going after number 7 this time. So Aubrey, you may have seen just a few weeks ago on a past show from several years ago, hiked Mount Bora with me and some of the older boys and some other guys. Abby and Kate here, we hiked, what did we hike? Leatherman Peak and Hindman Peak a couple years ago over the last few years. Abby, how was Leatherman Peak?
I cried my eyes out.
All right, there was some fear factor going on there with Leatherman Peak. She's grown up a little bit. As far as Mount Idaho goes, also known as Elkhorn Peak, as I said, it's the 7th highest in Idaho, just a little bit over 12,000 feet. This one's known as a pretty tough hike. It's got some beautiful stuff on the bottom, kind of going through the trees. It's just a classic hike, but it's also got some of that Mount Bora Chicken Out Ridge kind of stuff with it. So I'm actually kind of interested. We've been teasing Abby a little bit on how she's going to do. I think she's going to do great. She's like the toughest girl I've ever known practically. I mean, I've got the 2 toughest girls I have ever known. Both of them pole vault and do all kinds of crazy stuff, aren't afraid of anything. So I can't imagine Abby being afraid once we get up here. We'll see. There's a lot of brother, sister, you know, who's the toughest, tallest drama going on. So they're all probably going to pile up this mountain. But anyways, I think this is going to be a fun hike. I'm excited to do it with my kids. Let's get after it. So where is Mount Idaho? Well, the easy answer is it's just south of Mount Bora, Idaho's tallest peak. If you're not sure where that is, basically just head up north through Mackey. As you keep driving, off to the east is the mountain range that holds many of Idaho's tallest peaks, like Leatherman, Mount Bora, Mount Idaho, Mount Church, and more. To head up Mount Idaho, you'll turn up a small dirt road called Elkhorn Creek. Now this road isn't labeled, but the easy way to find it is by knowing that it's just a third of a mile south of the Trail Creek Road turnoff. So even if you miss the turn and get to the Trail Creek Road, turn around and go back a third of a mile, and it's right there. Now follow this road to the end, which isn't very far, maybe a mile or so. There's a few dead-end splits, but it should be kind of obvious which one to take. While you don't necessarily need 4-wheel drive, you do need some clearance, and the road's a bit rough. There were a couple other vehicles at the trailhead, so we weren't alone on the mountain, even though it was a weekday. Even though this is one of the 9 Idaho peaks that are over 12,000 feet, it's not very popular. So don't be surprised if you come and there's not a lot of others on the trail. The trail through this section is not a trail worth bragging about. For the first half mile, you're just in wide open sagebrush, deserty looking country. The scenery would improve pretty quickly, but for now, just plug along as you get into the tighter portion of the canyon. You'll actually start to gain elevation at a steady pace, and then just as you reach the juniper trees about a half mile in, the trail gets pretty steep. It happens gradually enough that you suddenly find yourself huffing and puffing, looking at the trail wondering what happened. And as you turn back around and look what you came up, you realize you're going up some steep stuff. All right, we're still in the trees here, but it started going up in a hurry. My kids are acting surprised, but what they don't know is when you're only hiking 4 miles one way, gaining over 5,000 feet, you got to cover some elevation. The steep trail just keeps going up. Most places this would be a trail loaded with switchbacks, but not here. I don't know if we ever had a single switchback the entire way up. The trees change from junipers to pine trees. As you look up ahead, it appears to flatten out, and sure enough, it does. It goes from a terribly steep trail to a very easy trail in an instant, and I'll tell you what, it's a welcome change. We are on a much better trail right now. We've hit that mile mark and about 1,000 feet in elevation. So that's a pretty good little climb there right out the gate. The trail after that first mile is actually pretty pleasant, with one exception, being able to stick to the trail. For whatever reason, there's not a well-developed trail through this area. There's cairns that help you stay on the right path as it fades in and out, but even then the cairns get confusing. I'm pretty sure that there's several diverging trails where people have built cairns. It seems like we lost the trail a half dozen times only to find another trail complete with cairns further up. See this jagged peak up and to the left of the basin? That's point 1160. Not really a named peak, but hikers call it that simply for its elevation, and that will soon become a compass for a while.
Is that a part of it?
When you make it to the basin where the water seems to show up from under the rocks, this is a great place to take a break and get ready for the next push. There's just something about drinking water straight out of the mountain. And when you can do it without having to worry about filtering, it's even better. After making sure we had plenty of water to last the rest of the hike, we continued forward. And yes, at this point, we had no trail. We'd lost it a while ago. However, we knew where we needed to go.
Okay, so we've hit mile 2, and that was pretty much just trying to find the trail. We've been back and forth, hitting a cairn here and there, but we've made it to the top of the inlet, or the water, I guess, and now we're just on like a bunch of rocks. I have no clue where the trail is, but we know where we need to be going, and so we're just gonna go in that direction and maybe come across the trail. If not, we can bushwhack, but we're gonna go.
Remember that point 1160? Well, from here we'd hike right towards that point. It's basically the ridge coming off of it that we'd want to be on just below the jagged rocks. There's a rock gully coming down from the left, and that's your route up, or at least along that gully and through the gully when it's the only way. It was actually in the gully where we finally started finding more rock cairns again, so at least we knew we were on the right path. So we are now going right up the gully, and we've picked up the trail, apparently. This is definitely a change of pace, as now it gets steep with no end in sight. In fact, this is where you'll gain a significant portion of the elevation gain. As it turns into a bit of a rock scramble at times, although it's now steep, at least in my opinion, it also starts to get fun. Why are you guys breathing so hard? I'm not. I'm just trying to get a little extra oxygen. Yep. We've made it to the point right below point 1160, so elevation 1160. It's pretty obvious once you get up here if you kind of know where you're heading. And then you can see behind me there the saddle. There's a trail, so it's obvious on where we're going. And right there we've got Mount Idaho. As far as the class range here, they say this doesn't get any worse than a class 3, kind of right on the edge there. So class 3 means that you're using your hands, but you don't need a rope. So that means I'm safe to bring my kids, I hope, but I'm sure there'll be some kind of sketchy spots up there. We'll just get started. From here below point 1160, it's easy to see where to go. The trail isn't obvious where you're standing, but you can see it on the other side of the saddle. So just work towards it, and sure enough, a trail will materialize. The rock's pretty loose underfoot, but it's really not too big a deal just to work through.
All right, well, there's 3 trails going both sides and up it. We kind of just checked out this one, and it looks like it drops off completely over there. So we're not gonna do that one because that sounds like a death trap. But we're gonna try to take this trail over here or go up, and we'll just see which one works out the best.
As Abby said, at the east end of the saddle, we took the trail on the north side of the ridge, which turned out to be the right choice. The trail crisscrossed the ridge a few times, staying on the north side the majority of the time, and crossing right over the top at one point. But overall, it seemed pretty simple just to use common sense and follow what looked like the most used trail. Okay, that's what I feel like right now.
Really relaxing.
How are you doing, Aubrey?
I'm doing good. Blood in my legs, but I'm doing good.
Abby, are we optimistic?
I'm good. I haven't been scared yet, so we got a lot ahead of us, but we're good.
That's nothing. There's Mount Bora behind us. I knew it was close, but it's actually surprising when you get up here how close it is. It's literally just the next major mountain away. So you can actually see Chicken Out Ridge. You can see kind of those 2 colored veins of rock, and that's the whole Chicken Out Ridge area. And then you can see the trail heading up to the peak. So it's just right here. That's one cool thing about this peak is, you know, they say that the view to Bora Peak is pretty awesome. It's hard to say from here the route. I have no idea. We're just gonna go and hope that the trail kind of materializes. Up higher you can see it, but at this point you can look up and see it's just an uphill scramble. You can't really see any obvious trail, but just head on up and the trail will work itself out. There are still a few rock cairns to guide you, but overall it's not too difficult to tell where to go. The mountain itself at this point is a mix of solid rock and loose rock. Just be careful and you'll be fine. It might be tiring and a tough climb at this point, but it's not too difficult if you take your time. Let me give you a few things to consider. First, I would recommend helmets for this climb. We didn't have them, but probably should have. You'll see why as we keep going. Second, leather gloves or grippy gloves would be a good idea as the rocks are pretty sharp. And up ahead, we'd be using our hands a lot. And then for just a couple general tips, get an early start to beat any afternoon storms. Use walking sticks as they're very useful up to this point, even though we ditched them once we needed our hands. And of course, know where you can get water along the trail if it's available, and have enough for the final ascent once you leave your last water source. So far we're able to snake through this stuff that looked pretty intimidating. I mean, we've still got a ways to go, so there might be something more to find, but I'm pretty happy with it right now. Up until now, we were still using our walking sticks. However, now that Class 3 rock scramble I mentioned was in front of us. Since we would need our hands more than the walking sticks, we stashed them in the rocks along the side of the trail. This would be the toughest part of the climb as far as difficulty goes. The dangerous part was actually not exposure to big falls. Rather, it was the danger of rolling rocks as there was so much loose rock we had to work through. We had to be very aware of where everyone else was and be as careful as possible as far as dislodging any rocks that might hit another one of us. In the beginning, we made sure everybody kind of spread out and wasn't directly above or below each other in case rocks got dislodged. As we got further up, one of the best solutions I had was to keep everybody as close as possible to each other. That way any rocks accidentally dislodged didn't have time to get enough speed to injure us. We still moved some rocks, but they weren't going fast yet until they got past us. And then sure enough, there were some that really got moving. Thankfully, there were no other hikers below us that we had to worry about.
It's actually turned out to be way fun. Like, I've enjoyed it a lot more than Leatherman or whatever. I was just doing it out of complete grit because I was terrified and just had to get up there. This one's like, oh, I kind of want to keep going. It's like fun.
Bit. Hey, Cater.
Oh, hi. Took you guys long enough.
Yeah, ha ha ha.
Hey, if you want to maybe wait, I'd have been fine. Sounds nothing in there.
And there it is. Yeah. All right, here we are. What do you guys think?
It's really cool.
Good.
So, not as tough as far as exposure and things that I expected. The last part was definitely a little rougher as far as loose rock, but we made it. Abby was actually having fun. She wasn't scared at all. It was more just fun this time. I think we all had a good time. How do you guys rate it compared to Bora, Aubrey?
I thought Bora was easier, honestly.
Okay, you can see Bora right there on our left. It's more solid rock.
Yeah, there's less like rock scrambling and worrying about like things sliding out from under you. There's like just one rock scramble and it's super easy.
So you got Chicken Out Ridge, which has more exposure than anything we had here. Abby, Kate, what do you guys think about this compared to Leatherman?
It was good. I'm glad we're not going to have to just worry about rocks hitting each other on the way down, but we definitely still have to be careful. But
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Leatherman. You're not down to your knees in loose rock, but there's a lot of loose stuff that you got to be careful of. But either way, we made it. One more 12,000 foot peak here in Idaho. We've got a storm that's kind of coming in, and I was thinking right before we got here, there's some thunder. I was thinking no lightning, we're okay, and then suddenly right as we got close to the top, I heard it. So we are going to just hurry, get a quick picture, put this camera away, and get off this peak in a hurry here. But either way, it's a great time. We had fun. We laughed a lot. The kind of stuff you don't see on camera when we're just having fun and teasing and laughing and stuff. So overall, a great trip for me. I loved it. These episodes can't be done without your help. You know the drill. Please make some comments, like, and subscribe. And I'll keep working on more videos.